Good afternoon, everyone. This is week 12, and this week we're going to talk about fiscal policy and monetary policy. All right. Do you guys have any question before I start the class? Anybody? Any question for me, guys? No? All right. Okay. So it says here, macroeconomic policies are concerned with the operation of the economy as a whole. We know what macroeconomics is. So the macroeconomic will be actually always trying to find out a way so that they can have a stable economy within the country, within the economy, within the country. Okay. So their main job is to keep the business cycle running smooth. Government will always have some influence because it's a mixed economy. Okay. Most of the countries in the world, we have mixed economies. And government will always have some influence on it. Now, what are the main objectives of these macroeconomic policies? We say major objectives of macroeconomic policies are, first of all, provide a stable economic condition. As I said before, the main target is to keep the economy stable. Okay, it's their main job. They keep the economic condition stable. And why we need to make it stable? To keep it grow. To have a sustainable economic growth. When you say sustainable economic growth, we mean that economic growth should be actually sustained. Sustain, the word sustain means here is this way, that you will have this all the time. Every year, there will be a smooth growth, not like a very volatile growth. Volatile growth, I mean here this way, that's this year the economic growth is too high, but the next year is too low, again the high, low, like this type of economy we are not expecting. We are expecting sustainable. It's growing slowly, but it grows all the time in a sustainable manner. Okay, that's what is our main target is. Okay, so to achieve this objective, we have to develop some macroeconomic policies. And what else they do? The macroeconomic policies will also be generated to create employment. Okay, to create employment. If you do not have the employment, the problem is that people are not there who will be working for the business. If there is no labor who is working, or even you will find that the labor is not also finding the work, then the GDP will not be growing. That's the problem. GDP will not be growing. So we need people who will be working, and we also have to create work for those people to find. So creating employment is one of the major objectives of any macroeconomic policies. By keeping the price level stable at 2 to 3% inflation rate, so we try to keep the macroeconomic policy to keep a sustained inflation rate, which is normally 2 to 3%. Okay, and this stable economy will be this stable inflation rate is actually a function of monetary policy. We'll talk about it very soon. We'll be talking about it very soon. Then keeping enhanced standard of living. Standard of living is actually related with the real economic growth. So when the economy will have sustainable economic growth, standard of living will be gradually developing. Okay, so these are our main objectives of macroeconomic policies. Now, next one. How do we actually smooth the business cycle? Okay, remember these things. C is equal, AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. So this is our main definition, main formula to actually have an aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is equal to aggregate expenditure is also equal to output. Okay, so we follow this, follow this equation. And interesting part is that we actually influence this consumption, investment, government expenditure in export and import by taking some macroeconomic policies. Macroeconomic policies are actually divided into two parts. One is monetary policy, another one is fiscal policy. So what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is involved with interest rate and the money supply. Again, interest is also used as a weapon to control the money supply. So the interest rate is actually part of monetary policy. All right. And fiscal policy is concerned about the government income and expenditure. So government revenue and the government expenditure. So how the government will be, from where the government will get their money from, where the government will generate their money from, that is actually part of revenue. Okay. And how the money will be spent, that is also part of your fiscal policy. So fiscal policy will be concerned how much tax to impose, which project to take, which project not to take. So these things will be actually connected with our fiscal policy. And monetary policy is about money and interest rate. Okay. Now, major demand management policies. So here we talk about fiscal policy first. Okay. All right. So let me take these things away from here. So fiscal policy, as you said before, government can change the output, employment, and price level by changing the government expenditure or tax. So we said before, the main objective of macroeconomic policy is to create a stable economy. Okay, they're here to create a stable economy. And we need this stable economy for our better GDP. We need these things for output, employment, and the price level. So fiscal policy will be actually helping us to achieve these macroeconomic policies. Okay. Fiscal policy also operate through changes in level and types of taxes. It's all about taxes, as I said before, that it's about revenue and expenditure, which comes from tax and expenditure of the business, of the economy, not the business country. All right, fiscal tools for fiscal policy. What are the major tools? Major tools are this: change in tax and change in government expenditure. This is our major. This is our major tool. Change in tax and change in government expenditure. So look, when there will be a change in tax, changes in tax will have a direct impact on consumption. There it is. Changes in tax will have a major impact on consumption. Okay. And when it will have an impact on consumption, it will have impact of aggregate demand, which is actually part of our GDP. Okay, how the tax is actually impacting our consumption. Look, if government put more tax on us, I mean the citizens, the problem is that we have less money for our expenditure. If the government imposes more tax on us, let's say your income is $60,000 your income, and you have to pay $40,000 to the government. So to be honest, you will have left only $20,000 left. Not much for expenditure. So you will be very cautious about how much money you are spending. The consumption will be low. Make sense? So changes in tax will have our impact on consumption. So changes in tax directly changes the consumption expenditure. When the consumption expenditure C is being impacted, aggregate expenditure and aggregate demand will be impacted too. Any question on these, guys? No. So these will have impact on aggregate expenditure and aggregate demand and the GDP. And these will have impact in employment and output. Let me tell you a very nice story about USA. In US, what happened to Ronald Reagan's time. That time they actually proposed, the senator proposed to actually change the tax. We call it tax reform of Ronald Reagan. Okay. So Ronald Reagan actually offered some tax reform. When they offered the tax reform, what was the issue? What actually happened at that time? So government realized that people are not working hard. Government wanted to know why citizens are not working. So there was high unemployment rate because citizens are not willing to work. So the research body found this way, well, people are not motivated to work because whatever they're earning, most of the money goes to the government pocket. When the money is going to the government pocket, people are not happy to work. Nothing left for them. That's the problem they're facing. Now, the issue is this. If you do not have enough money in your pocket after your work, you are not motivated to work. Government said, all right, fine. We are not going to charge them much taxes now then. Let's charge them less taxes. All right, so when government announced that we are not going to charge you much taxes, so people were happy. People are happy, they start to work. Okay, people are happy, they start to work. So when they start to work, they don't pay much tax to the government. Much money is left with the citizen's pocket. Now another problem comes up when it happens. When the people have more money in their pocket, they're again not working. Why is that? Because they have enough money in their pocket. When you have money in your pocket, you are not willing to work. Okay, so this was the case. Okay, so people are not very happy about it. So yeah, government had to change the tax. So what we call this one as this way, that the tax reform policy actually was a failure. Okay. Another tools we have is the expenditure. So we understand about the tax, right? The tax needs to be a balanced tax. Do not overtax them, do not undertax them. Okay, who will decide how much should be taxed? Economists are there. Okay, economists are there, they will make this decision. Next is expenditure. Government expenditure will have straight impact on our GDP. See, this one. Okay. When the government will have less expenditure, there will be less GDP. More expenditure, more GDP. Now the question is, can government spend as much as they want? No, they need to check what is their budget. We'll talk about budget very soon. Just allow me some time. Now, changes in government expenditure will have impact in changes in aggregate expenditure. Again, these will have impact in the GDP. Again, employment and output. Now, where does the government get money from to spend? The issue is budget. So government will make a budget. The budget is composed of government, net taxes and expenditure, how much tax government is receiving from citizens. So to make the budget, they need to know how much tax they will be receiving. The government can actually have an estimation or how much tax they will be receiving. They will have that estimation. Okay. The budget is composed of government net tax and the expenditure. How do you calculate net tax? Net tax is equal to tax minus social security transfer, social security payment, central link payment. Okay. So government will receive some tax and government will give some money to the citizens who are disadvantaged people. Okay. Disadvantage in the sense their income is low. Don't think disadvantage is a very bad word or something negative. No, these are the people who have some problems, who need some help, straight help from the government. Okay, those people, government have to pay them some money there. Okay. All right. So this says, so net tax means the tax collection, the revenue tax collection minus the government transfers, how much money government is giving to other people. So that's what is called net tax. So this says the budget balance is net tax minus the government expenditure. That's where they find it should be. When it is zero, we understand that this is balanced. If it is positive, means government is collecting more taxes than the expenditure. This is called surplus. Okay. When the government will have more expenditure than the tax collection, we call that negative or deficit. You heard this thing, the budget deficit or budget surplus. This is the case. Okay. And when there is zero, it means balanced. Balanced means your tax and your expenditure is same. This is called balanced budget. Have a look. This is actually 4 pages of business cycle. I have shown these things before. So business starts and they go to the peak. When they reach their peak level, it will slowly start to go down, which is known as recession, or you call that trough. And then it will again go up. That is known that phase is known as expansion process, expansion phase. Okay, and then they reach to the peak level. After the peak level, they go down, recession, and again trough, and again expansion. That's how they grow. An interesting thing is that you can notice here. I will draw it. Look at this. See, it's going like this, upward sloping. Yes, it's going up, down, but end of the day, you see, it has a slope of going upward. Okay. All right. Now, fiscal policies. I think this is too small, right? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it to the next slide slowly. Don't worry about it. Okay. So fiscal policy, it operates through the changes in the level and types of tax and changes in the level of composition of government expenditure. So fiscal policy is related with the tax and government expenditure. So what are the different types of fiscal policies? Okay. Okay. So we have this discretionary fiscal policies, expansionary and contractionary fiscal policy. 2 types of fiscal policy we have. Discretionary and automatic or non-discretionary fiscal stabilizers. I will take these one in another way. Okay. Discretionary fiscal policy. Discretionary is again 2 types, expansionary and contractionary fiscal policy. So sometimes what government does is that intentionally government will interfere in the fiscal policy. Intentionally. For example, let me give an example. Okay. For example, let's in COVID time. During COVID, government said, we are going to give people some money as a job keeper, job seeker, and also a lot of money went to the business as well. So these things are actually government initiated these things so that people have confidence within the economy. They had to do that. Okay. So these things when government spend the money to expand the economy, this is called expansionary fiscal policies. Sometimes government want to contract the economy too, and we'll talk about it soon. A fiscal stimulus package after GFC. GFC means global financial crisis. In 2008, 9, and 10, that 7, 8, 9, these 3 times, 3 years, the whole world actually was facing some problem. We call the global financial crisis we had a long back, around 12, 13 years back. Okay, we had these things. That time it was Kevin Rudd government was in power, and Kevin Rudd was giving, everybody was getting $1,000. Everybody who paid a tax, okay, even $1 tax you paid, doesn't matter, you will receive 990 or something like that. Around $1,000 they gave that time. Okay. Why government did that? So that people can take this money and go out and do the shopping. When they do the shopping, what happens? The business survives. That time it was so bad, nobody went out, nobody wanted to buy anything. Like, unless you need it, nobody did it. Nobody did any shopping or purchasing. Okay, so this was the case that time. And there's a fiscal, so that thing was named as stimulus package. Okay, why government did that? Government did things to support the aggregate demand by increasing the public spending or cutting tax. Sometimes government does these things by cutting the taxes. Okay, they're used to remove deflationary or inflationary gap, smooth out the economic fluctuations, and influence aggregate demand, also aggregate supply. So government did this so that the people will take the money, they will go out, they do some shopping, they spend the money, and the economy will have a boom. That was the main objective of this expansionary fiscal policies. Sometimes government see that people is actually spending too much money and the economy is growing too fast. This is also not good, because they know when something grows too fast, it will collapse. Government that time try to contract it. That time government will take the money out of people's hand. There are some ways how to do that. I will talk soon. Another one is automated or non-discretionary fiscal stabilizers, are a type of fiscal policies that happen automatically and tend to offset fluctuations in economic activity without direct intervention from the government or policymakers. So normally the economy should go back to its normal stage, like we have seen in there. Look at the business cycle. Normally it should go back to go through its phases. But it happens sometimes recession is going too below, too down, that's worry. That time government interfere. And it happened that time. Let me show you in here. Look at that. Real GDP. What happened that time? So this was the one, I think 910. This is the time. Okay. Yeah, 8, 9, 10 went really down. And let me show you where it is. Not the growth. I don't want the growth. I am looking for. I can find from here actually the growth. You will see that the growth was negative that time. Australian growth. You see the growth is negative here. You see this is 0 minus 2 in here. Let me make it bigger. Oh no, that's too big. Okay, 2. And this is here, it should be 0. You can see there. Okay, 2, 4. Here it is. See, this 0. And you see, the growth has gone down. Growth was negative, but it means the economy was doing bad, negative growth. And you can see these things from here. GDP constant 2015 from here as well. You can find there will be a huge dive in that time. Okay. This way there was some 1.18, 1.15, 1.13. Australian one, let me. Where is our line chart? Give me a minute here. They should show from data bank. I don't need from 90, I just need for 2000, 18, 19, I don't need that. I need this 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 enough. I don't need this all. Okay. It's showing too much. Wait a minute. Take it off. All right, let's go in here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. That's it. Chart is not that very big here, but anyway, I can actually show you these things from the growth rate, not per capita, GDP growth, annual percentage, which are actually negative in this case. Not these. Actually, we have to should have these ones in here. Yeah. 8 and 9. This is the time was the negative. It was going down. But I don't know why it's not showing in the real numbers. Growth was supposed to be negative. 9 and 10. Actually, it shows here a little bit 54.79. Not that much growth, but it should be actually going down. That's what it should show. Anyway, going back to our point again. So sometimes it happens that this economy cannot actually fix it by itself. That time government need to interfere. That is discussionary one. But when they go, normally it should be automatic. Automatically it should go. That's the nature of the business, nature of economy. That it will go down, it will go up again. That's normal for any business cycle. All right, so this says here that automatic or non-discretionary fiscal stabilizers are a type of fiscal policy that happen automatically and tend to offset fluctuations in economic activity without direct intervention. They are tax structure and government transfer payment program that lead to a larger budget deficit. Now, cyclical and structural budget balances. Said here, budget deficit surpluses and past budget outcomes. So government will have these problems. Like this is very normal, that business will always have some ups and downs. We call that cyclical. We call that cyclical balance. It's very normal that every 1 year it will be good, another it should be bad, another it should be good. So this is a very normal thing to happen in any economy. Okay. All right, I think here will show up a little, here the percentage of GDP. Table 14 by this one. Fiscal balance is 13-14 was minus 3.0% of GDP. 13-14 is not there. Okay. Which is equivalent to $47 billion. Fiscal balances was actually minus negative, which is $41 billion. So we had some negative balance or budget deficit. Okay. Normally, Australian government always have the positive balance, surplus budget. The budget surplus always have, but sometimes they have budget deficit too. Now, how it works, the effectiveness of fiscal policy, this says government's medium-term fiscal strategy is aimed to reduce the cyclical fluctuation in business cycle. Like I said before, when the normally business cycle will be very efficient to fix it by itself, but sometimes government need to interfere. Government need to come up with some strategies. And all these strategies are actually based on human psychology, how the people behave. And these things are actually generated. These behavior are actually generated by observing human behavior for years after years. Okay. Yeah. So fiscal policy has an important complementary role along the monetary policy, which normally plays. Monetary policy is actually mainly to control the money supply and the interest rate. So fiscal policy and monetary policy, both of them need to be played together. You cannot just fix an economy applying only the fiscal policies. It's not going to work. You need both fiscal policy and monetary policy. Both the policies you will need. Okay. And both of them need to apply at the same time. And when you make a fiscal policy to contract the economy or expand the economy, monetary policy will also have to have the same strategies, same objective. Okay. Now, we said first, fiscal policy plays a counter-cyclical role primarily through the automatic fiscal stabilizer, which means that it will try to fix the economy. Okay. Normally they will do that, but sometimes they do not do it. Government comes up with the intervention. What could be the government different interventions? We'll see that very soon. They can go for a stimulus package. They can give some tax break. Okay, these two mainly they apply for fiscal policies. Our government try to spend more money, take a loan from the other countries and make more, spend more money on different projects. So the people will have more employment. Okay, so the people will have more employment. All right. So this says they should have minimum effect on the medium-term fiscal position. They unwind automatically once the economy returns to full employment. When the economy will go back to its full employment means 95% employment is full employment. That's normal. Okay, that's very normal. Now, so what government does is this: they will try to find out some fiscal policies, some strategies to influence the economy. Influence with what? Influence with to fulfill the macroeconomic objective of the business, of the economy. Okay. So this says fiscal multiplier. So what does it mean? A fiscal multiplier is changes in output divided by changes in government expenditure or changes in tax is equal to 0.9. It means if the government has actually, government will check that what percentage of government expenditure will have changes in output. What, let's say government changes 2% changes in government expenditure. It will have, let's say, 2%, 90% of 2%. So it will be 1.8% changes will be in government GDP. Okay, that's what they mean by 0.9. If government brings 10% changes in the government expenditure, it will have 9% impact on the output. That's what they mean. Okay. So if this is higher it is, the better it is, more efficient it is. Okay. All right. Sustainability of fiscal policy. The Australian government's low net debt means capacity to service debt is not an issue. At the expected peak of 11.4% of GDP in 2014, this is the information you're providing here that how Australia is doing. Australia is doing really well in that case. So they will have actually 11.4% of GDP in 2014-15. The annual net interest burden is only 0.5% point of GDP. This is around 1/4 of the G7 average. Even the interest rates are higher in Australia than the major advanced economies due to the relative strength of our economy. Australian economy is really strong economy. Okay, even it has some public debt, still the economy is doing well. So what does it mean by public debt? Okay, in deficit actually, they will say, how does the government fund its budget deficit? That's the public debt. Government takes the money from Reserve Bank. Okay, government take the money from the reserve. So government can borrow fund domestically, Reserve Bank, or internationally by IMF, World Bank. From there also they can bring the money. Okay, by the government debt instrument. What is debt instrument? Treasury bond and treasury notes. Treasury bond and treasury notes are actually nothing but a guarantee. Okay, that government will give some bond to the Reserve Bank, that this is the bond, this is the, let me show you actually what are the bonds look like. It's like a paper, here it is. Commonwealth of Australia, this is bond, a paper will be given to the Reserve Bank or the government, let's say $20 bond. So one paper means you have $20 you have. And government will give 5.25% interest on it. Okay, so like a paper they give. They give this paper to the Reserve Bank will give them the money. Okay. Another is government can print money. A lot of countries in the world, they print money. But this is not a very good thing to do. Okay. If budget deficit stimulates the future output and income, higher capacity to pay off the debt. So they mean here this way, that if the budget deficit stimulate, if budget deficit will actually stimulate the output of the country or output of the income of the country, then it will have the power, more power to pay off the debts. Okay. But there is a problem. The problem is the public debt. Okay. If the public debt goes down, future Y will be actually down too. Where future income is down, future debt payments will be high. So government needs to actually devise their instrument in such a way that the future output is increasing. In future, maybe not now, because most of the instruments will have impact after a couple of years, not right now. That today they will do it, tomorrow morning they will have impact. It's not like that. It will have impact after some days. It takes time to actually see the impact. Okay. They say if the future income is down, okay, future output is low, then it will have problems in future. Future debt will be increasing. Okay. When the future debt is increasing, the future generation will be bearing this debt burden. They will be worse off. Even the government can actually go bankrupt. Now, what is the problem if they print the money? Printing the money will create inflation. Okay. All right. So however, inflation reduces the debt in real terms. But yeah, if you can print money and solve your problem, you will not have to actually borrow money. So future debt, public debt will be less. That one thing is good in there, printing money. But it will create high inflation, and later you'll find the price for every item is too high. Okay. How about taking money from the other countries? Foreign debt, government can borrow from other countries, but they will have to pay interest. Okay. Okay. So another way, another problem is when government will be actually taking a loan from other countries, they will have to pay interest, and the interest will be actually create some deficit in their balance of payment. I think balance of payment we'll talk maybe next week. Let me check. Yeah, balance of payment on next week. So balance of payment is this thing that every country have transaction with other countries, right? And there is no need to think that they pay the money. No, they don't pay the money. Let's say Australia is actually selling some item to China. So does China pay the money straight to Australia? No. China also sells some items to Australia. So let's say Australia has sold some pork to China. And how much? Let's say $50,000. Example I'm giving. It's more than that. It's around more than $1 billion. They do it. So let's say $50,000. China is selling some T-shirt to Australia, which is, let's say, $70,000. Okay. So Australia will have to pay China $20,000. But do they pay this money? No, they keep it and they roll it to next year. Okay. When this current account balance goes too big, that time China will say, oh my God, it's too much money. So that's 20,000 is nothing, it's not much. It's all right. But when it go like $2 million, $20 billion, or $50 billion, they will say, no, you pay us something. Okay. That time they will give them the treasury bonds. That's how it works. It's not the cash money goes out of the country, print money and give them. It's not like that. In Australia, both the net foreign debt and interest payments are not large by international standards. So Australia do not have that much. It's not that high. Some poor countries, for example, let's say Bangladesh or Nepal or maybe let's say Myanmar, they might have these things. Okay. Very high debt. Now in Sri Lanka has a very high debt to China, around $20 billion. Okay. So they understand that 20 billion is too big for Sri Lankan economy. Okay, it's too big. So China will tell them, okay, give us the money now because the trade deficit is too high. Okay. So most of the foreign debt on it is actually private, not public. Interest payments are done is privately, not public. Private public, it means here that private companies does the trading mainly. Government also does trading too, but mainly it is private. Most of that's how you said most of the foreign debt, not all, most. Example in here. Which country is that? Let me see. Net foreign debt, public sector, this should be Australian one. Net foreign debt, public sector and general. Look at this. Public sector is very low. Mainly is the private sector. The public sector is also there, but not that high. It's low. Mainly this is private sector. What are the limitations of fiscal policy? However, there are some limitations. The time lag of fiscal policy. Like if they take a policy today, it will have impact after a couple of years, not right now. This is the problem. The policy implementation may take longer time and economic situation may change. Magnitude of fiscal policies. it's very hard to predict how the fiscal policy will be affected. Okay, difficult to predict the size of the government expenditure and tax changes. So they don't know. Yes, they understand it will have an impact, but how much impact it will have, that's the thing is very hard to actually predict. Crowding out is another problem. This is increase in government expenditure can increase interest rate and adversely affect the private investment and consumption spending. Okay, so when the government start to spend more and more money, the problem is there will not be much money left in the bank. As a result, the interest rate will be going high. And when the interest rate goes high, the private sector don't want to invest the money. They don't want to take the loan from the bank and make the investment. This is the problem they will have. Okay. So that's what the problem, they're crowding out. But interest rate is also set by the monetary policy prescribed by the Reserve Bank of Australia. Okay, now, and the fiscal policy may be destabilizing too. Sometimes the fiscal policies will have, like, as I said before, when in USA, Ronald Reagan had taken the tax reformation policies, they did not work. It destabilizes the economy. It might happen too. Okay. All right. You can see the blue line showing you. See, the real GDP is going up and down, no intervention, nothing. Okay. But B, the green one, is policy stabilizer. That's also going along, no problem. That's also fine, automatic one. Okay. When the government intervenes and destabilizes the policies, then you see it have bigger impact. Okay. And we don't want to see the red line. No. We want to see that it works automatically, normally, either green or blue one. That's better. Okay, it's normal course of actions. Now let's talk about monetary policy. Okay. Monetary policy is involved with the interest rate on overnight loan in the money market. Okay. They check the interest rate. All right. Other one is interest rate and the money supply too. They control the money supply, but using the interest rate. Okay. So how it works? Look, changes in cash rate, it means the interest rate. Okay. Other market rates will be impacted. Investment and consumption will be impacted. As a result, aggregate expenditure will be impacted. How it happens? Let's say the Australian government says that, well, interest rate will be going up. If the interest rate goes high, okay, the problem is private investment. Remember, C plus I, this I is the private investment. Okay, so the private investment will be actually going down. Got a higher interest rate, they cannot make enough profit and they will not be interested to take the money out of the bank and invest. This is the problem they have. When there is, and also consumption as well, interest rate is high. So businesses, even some businesses take loan, that they will find that their product cost is too high because they have to pay a lot of interest to the bank. Product cost is too high. When the product cost is high, the consumption will be also down because people is not going to buy things at a higher prices. The consumption will be down and investment will also be down. So you'll see C and I will be actually going down. As a result, your aggregate demand will be going down too. Okay. Now, what is the objective of monetary policies? You will find these objectives in Reserve Bank website too. I will show you here. Australian Reserve Bank, RBA. Here it is, Reserve Bank Australia. And you'll find here the monetary policy. Here it is, monetary policy. See, monetary policy framework. Let's have a look. Roll up the cash rate. Let's see what they're saying.
The Reserve Bank's charter was written in 1959. It's broader than the charter of most other central banks. It's got three key elements. The Reserve Bank is responsible for low and stable inflation, for full employment, and promoting the general welfare of the Australian people. I'm glad we've got this broad mandate. As I said, it's broader than most other central banks. Many other central banks just have a mandate to control inflation. In the end, low inflation is not the goal in and of itself. It's delivering low inflation to promote the economic prosperity of the Australian people. The Reserve Bank Board sets the cash rate on the first Tuesday of every month. The cash rate is the rate that banks use to lend to one another in the short-term money market. But it has a very large effect on mortgage rates in the economy, on the rates that people get on their savings, and affects asset prices and the exchange rate. So it's a very important interest rate. Sometimes we need to raise interest rates to achieve those objectives. If the economy is growing very strongly, demand's very buoyant, and that's pushing up prices, we might need to raise interest rates to slow the economy, to get things back onto an even keel. Conversely, if things are weak and demand is not very strong, inflation's low, we might need to lower interest rates to stimulate demand and get inflation back up towards the target. When we change interest rates, people obviously notice it in their mortgages, and that affects how much they spend. When rates are going up, they have less to spend, and when rates are going down, they have more to spend. Changes in the cash rate also affect the exchange rate. If we raise interest rates, the currency tends to appreciate, and when we lower interest rates, the currency tends to depreciate. Changes in interest rates can also affect people's confidence. In some circumstances, lower interest rates makes people feel happier. In other cases, higher interest rates make people feel less happy, and so that affects their spending. Changes in interest rates also affect asset prices. When we have lower interest rates, that tends to push up asset prices, and if asset prices are higher, people might feel wealthier, and if they're wealthier, they might spend more. And conversely, if high rates might mean lower asset prices, people don't feel as confident, they don't spend as much. Our board is made up of mainly outside people. They're either business people or people who have experience in other areas of public policy or public service. And I think that's really valuable. What I notice about business people and people who have the broader experience is they're very good at making decisions under uncertainty. And much of what the Reserve Bank Board is doing is making a very important decision in a quite an uncertain world. So we're trading off things all the time, and we're trying to make the best decision in the best welfare of the people of Australia. And the business people and people with outside expertise are very good at doing that. I dare say they're actually better doing it than economists. So I like kind of having this broad perspective on our board. I think it also helps the legitimacy and the public accountability of the board. It's much better to have interest rate decisions made by this broad group of people rather than primarily made by technical academic economists. So I'm a strong fan of our current board structure, although it's quite different from the boards of most other central banks. At a very practical level, we operate a flexible medium-term inflation target. Our objective is to deliver an average rate of inflation for the community between 2 and 3% over time. We're prepared to allow the inflation rate to move up and down over time, but we want people to be confident that over time, inflation in Australia will be 2 point something. And if people are confident that they can go about making their decisions about saving, investment and spending with assurance that inflation will be low and stable, the value of their money will be protected because it won't be eroded by inflation. They can have certainty about what the price level will do over time.
All right, let me show you the objectives. Inflation target. 2 to 3% inflation target, we say 2 to 3%. About us, those are our objectives. Here it is. These are the three things they have. The stability of the currency of Australia, maintenance of full employment in Australia, economic prosperity and welfare of the people of Australia. And also the maintain the inflation rate within 2 to 3%. That's their main objective. But what it having there? Anyway, so these are the main things they have. That's the main objective of Australia. Controlling the financial system. So the Reserve Bank Board says the interest rate so that it will achieve the objective of set out the Reserve Bank Act 1959. These are the stability of currency of Australia, maintaining the full employment of Australia, and the economic prosperity and welfare of citizens of Australia. The inflation target is defined as a medium-term average rather than the rate. It must be held at times. It should be 2 to 3%. Inflation is 2 to 3% per annum. That's the objective of monetary policies. Inflation over the long run is too high. It wasn't too high in this year. In 70s, it was too high. A target was introduced in this time of the 90s. After that, this inflation is very stable. Short-term interest rate, you see it was very high. Interest rate or inflation was high that time after 1980s. Slowly it has gone down. You see, after 90s, slowly going down. 180-day bill, my 6-month treasury bill, they mean 90-day bill. You see here. The red one is, it's actually the same. Interest rate remains the same for both the cash rate, 6-month bill, and 3 months bill. So, implementation of monetary policy, how do they implement it? Monetary controls, it says, changing the cash rate. So government actually controls the money supply, changing that. Let me give you in very briefly, I will tell you how it is, and in simple language, I will tell you this. Let's say government found the economy is very active, like Mr. Lloyd said in there, when they find that economy is very active and it's growing very fast, they need to actually see that, well, if it is too fast now, it will be hard to maintain the sustainability. It will not be sustained. Okay, so that time they will increase the interest rate. When they increase the interest rate, how do they do this? They will tell people that, okay, interest rate is too high. So people will put the money into the bank. There will be not much enough money in the public hand, or we call that money circulation. So government will take the money out of the market and put it into the bank. That's how they actually increase the interest rate. So economic activities will be actually slowing down. When the government see that people, and also another problem is the inflation comes up. I tell you what happened with inflation that time. When you have more money in your pocket, you actually spend more money to buy the same product. The coffee is, let's say, $4.50, $5 a coffee. When you have more money in your pocket, you will not be worried about paying $6 for a coffee. So you are actually increasing the coffee price. So $5 to $6 is actually 20% increase. That's too high. We want to keep it within 2 to 3%. But government does that time, they increase the interest rate and take the money out of people's pocket. So before they pay the high prices, they think 10 times. And the business also will not be thinking, oh, okay, they don't have enough money in the pocket, they will not increase the price. That's how they control the inflation too. When government will see that people do not have enough money in their pocket, it's very hard to, when government will see that it's very hard to actually make the people spend money, they will reduce the interest rate. When they reduce the interest rate, nobody keeps their money into the bank. They take the money out of the bank, and economic activities will be actually growing. So this is the technique they apply. By using the interest rate, they control the money supply. Okay. Here it is. The cash rate is determined by the money market as a result of the interactions of demand and supply for overnight fund. Okay. Or exchange settlement fund is funds which banks use to settle the transactions among themselves, the exchange settlement fund. If the Reserve Bank supplies more exchange settlement funds than the commercial bank wish to hold, the bank will try to shed funds by lending more in the cash market. Okay. Resulting in a tendency for the cash rate to fall. Conversely, if the Reserve Bank supplies less than the bank wish to hold, they will respond by trying to borrow money in cash, and these will actually beat up the cash rates. Have a look in here. Interest rate and quantity of money. Oh, wait. Interest rate and quantity of money. Look at the blue line, the demand curve, and this is money supply. Money supply is 0 and money supply is 1. So you see when the interest rate goes high, money supply actually, when the money supply will be shrink, interest rate will go high. Interest rate is actually the price. So you can see this is the thing, blue line is the demand curve. Look, quantity, and this is the price. Interest rate is known also as the price for money. Okay. In the demand curve, we know x-axis is about quantity, y-axis is the price. And the blue line is the demand curve. So the blue line is actually here, the demand for money, you see MD, money demand curve. Okay. An increase in the interest rate reduces the money supply and leads to a movement along the money demand curve. So it will move along the demand curve. So when the price of interest rate goes up, it will move along the line. But at the same time, if you squeeze the money supply, shrink the money supply, that will also increase the interest rate too. Now look at here, cash rate, up and down, going. So actually it's going down now, 2%. It's actually less than 2% now. Now 2015, now it is I think 1.5 or something. Yes. Transmission of monetary policy. What this says here, changes in interest rate affect the economic activity and inflation in several ways with much longer lag. Lag means how long it takes for a policy to have impact. Just like lags, because it takes time for individuals and businesses to adjust their behavior. That's why it takes time a little bit to see the impact in real life. This says here, changes in interest rate can change the savings and spending. Like I said before, the savings rate. So interest rate will actually have an impact in your saving pattern and spending behavior of farms and households, as well as the cash and credit flow. All right, so expansionary, contractionary monetary policy. Look, when government want to expand, they will reduce the interest rate because they want to see there are more economic activity. Okay. So an interest rate is down to stimulate the economic activities. This is called expansionary monetary policy. When the interest rate goes up, okay, there will be less economic activities to dampen economic activities when economy is overheated with high inflation. That's what I told you, that inflation will go high. People have more money in their pocket. Government will reduce the interest rate. Increase the interest rate. So people put the money in the bank. This is known as contractionary monetary policy. Okay. When the interest rate is high, investment will be low. Investment and consumption will be low. As a result, your aggregate expenditure will be low. Aggregate expenditure and aggregate demand will be low. It will reduce the output, I mean the GDP. Okay. Here it is. Interest rate is high. You see, investment goes down, consumption goes down, net export goes down. As a result, aggregate demand goes down. When aggregate demand goes down, output, price level, and unemployment goes high. Output and price level goes down, unemployment increases. Okay, here's the price level with the inflation and the real GDP. So you can see here, aggregate demand curve, aggregate supply curve. So the country was in equilibrium position. Okay. When the price level goes down, P1 to P2, you see, the outcome also goes down, Y1 to Y2. So here is the chart. Official rate will have impact on these four things: market rate, asset price, expectations of confidence, and the exchange rate. Four things will have impacted. And these will have impact in domestic demand as well as international demand or net export, net external demand. And these things will have impact on total demand of the country. Okay. And exchange rate will have impact again on import prices. Okay. And domestic inflationary pressure will be high, import prices will be also high, and there will be an inflation in the country. This is the various states showing you how it has impact. Economic indicator, what are the things that shows up how the economy is doing? We can answer this question by looking at inflation, GDP growth, and cash rate. These three things. Okay. Inflation needs to be low, GDP growth should be high, cash rate should be low. That's how we know that one of the countries is doing good or bad. Okay. Long-term economic growth. Before I go for long-term economic growth, any questions for me, guys?
No.
No. Okay. Now, growth over the decades. Look, it happens that a country might grow very quick in a couple of years. Oh, a couple of years, that's okay. But not that good, not that okay. Another way is that a country may have slow growth, but growing for a long time. Okay. Yes. So the thing is this, that which one you prefer? We prefer slow growth, but keep on growing for longer time. We do not want to one day grow, 1 year or a couple of years grows too high, and next couple of years it's off. That's not very stable economy. So this says growth over the decades. The cause of economic growth is an increase in quantity of factors, increase in productivity of factors. Quantity of factors, it means that, like we says that land, labor, capital, and organization, these are the four factors that we have. That's called quantity of factors. So if your land increases, labor increases, this is the thing, is good thing. The quantity of factors are increasing. And productivity factor, productivity means this way, that specialization is there. The people will be, their productivity, or let's say that someone is in a country that the productivity of the labor is increasing. Productivity of the labor is increasing. How it can increase? By enhancement of technology, enhancement of natural resources, enhancement of education, enhancing the training. Okay. So these are the various factors that will help you to increase your productivity. If you give someone training, they will be producing more and better. Okay. Yes. Now, capital accumulation, effect of an increase in savings rate. When the savings rate is high, people will be actually save more money. That will have a better capital available for the business to take the money from the bank and use it. So capital come a couple of ways. One is called human capital. Another one is called physical capital. Human capital, we mean this, like your education, your degree, your experience. These are human capital. Okay. So let's say someone is very efficient working, and if you ask them to work physically, they can produce, let's say, 20K. But when you let them use the technology, their same person will be actually producing 50K per hour. That means their productivity has increased because of introduction of the technology. So technology if you combine the technology with the human capital, I mean their training, their education things, that actually enhance a better productivity. Okay. Endogenous growth theory, it means this way: investment in research and development is encouraged through the use of patents and copyrights. So we always try, government will always try to find out a way that people are doing research and development. What research they are expecting? The research you are expecting is this, that people will be researching to find new technologies. People will be researching to find out new ways of increasing the productivity of a country. New technologies will be coming up, new tools might be coming up. Okay, the way our forefathers used to cultivate and now the way we cultivate is very different, very different. And we produce more than our forefathers because we use technologies now. Okay. So that's why they say the growth in the research and development is also encouraged, because this will also actually allow you to grow better in your future. Let's do these things. Supply side policies. Supply side means how the resources will be supplied, how the goods will be supplied, how the resources will be supplied, how much a country can supply. So look, long run supply is limited. Long run aggregate supply is limited because a country cannot produce more than what they have. So let's say in Australia, we have 50 million kangaroos. If someone asks the kangaroos to be supplied, we cannot supply more than 50 million, simple, but that's all we have. Same way, every country will have limited resources. Let's say Australia has some copper or bauxite or uranium or diamond or gold, whatever they have, it has a limit. We do not have unlimited gold, no, we don't. So what happens, they said, government attempts to increase the productivity and shift aggregate supply curve to the right. Now, government wants to actually try the level base so that we can actually supply more. How can we do that? Different ways, like we can, let's say, timber supply. So yes, we have limited trees, we have a number of trees. For example, we have 10 billion trees, for example. But in the long run, we can increase it. How we can increase it? By using vegetation process. New trees to grow, but it takes time. So in the long run, it may be possible by renewing your resources. Okay, this is your shift. So what the government does? Government attempts to increase productivity and shift aggregate supply. And they also try to do the product by using the productivity, increasing the productivity, introducing new technologies, introducing new way of production. Government will enhance the productivity. Okay, that's what the government's policies are. Okay, government will allow people to research, do their research and find out new ways, new techniques. Like in Australia, we used to have electricity by using coal, burning coal. So we have limited coal. When the coal will be finished, then what? So government started to find out new ways. How can we produce more electricity but using less resources? They found nuclear system. Now they're burning not the coal but uranium to produce more electricity but using less resources. This is one example I showed you. The productivity will be increasing. So that's what happens. So long run aggregate supply curve will be shifting to the right in the long run. How do they do these things? These will increase the product output, reduce the inflation, and interventionist. Government intervenes there. Okay, government intervenes and government makes some rules, regulations, how to do these things. Water supply, government makes rules. Okay, then electricity supply, government makes rules. Government intervenes in this case. Okay, because we have limited resources for this. Not only one or Australian government, every government of the world is very sensitive to this type of thing. That is so how they're using their resources. So supply side policies in Australia, policies to encourage competition. So we try to, government take some policies so that people have competition. For competition, how does the government encourage competition? Anti-competition legislation they introduce. Deregulation, privatization. Privatization, deregulation is the same thing here actually. Deregulation, privatization, increasing competition in the public sector. That's how the government used these 4 policies to encourage competition. What else government does to increase the supply? Increasing labor market flexibility, so that the more people will be coming to work shift-wise. Okay, casual workers, shift-wise. Tax reform to motivate them to work more. Support the research and development to find out, invent new technologies, new things, new medications, these things. So health is very important for a labor. The more healthy they are, the more nutrition they have, more education they have, okay, the better they will work. But to have these things, they need to do research and development. Okay, so what is the result of supply side policies? It will increase the productivity. That's the main point. All right, any questions for me, guys?